Hello and welcome to the Overland Journal podcast. I'm your host, Scott Brady, and I'm recording this intro on a snowy Prescott evening here in the winter of 2023. And I'm joined today by my co-host, Matt Scott, and we look back on the year 2023. We talk about the family that we awarded our Overlander of the Year to. We also discuss what we view as being the new overland vehicle of 2023. Matt and I also go through our list of our favorite gear from the year. We also spend some time talking about some new products from family-run businesses. We really like to highlight small family businesses on the podcast, so we've got a couple great ones from there. We also talk about a couple questions from our listeners. And we really look forward to our travels for 2024. So we talk a little bit about that as well. So 2023 was an amazing and interesting year. And we look back on the adventures from the last 12 months.
And a special thanks to Kuat Racks for their support of this week's podcast. Their new Ibex has landed. It's actually overlanded. This groundbreaking bed rack is effortlessly handling substantial loads, both on and off the grid. Constructed from lightweight yet durable aluminum, it boasts a ballistic black powder coat made for all the nature you can throw at it. It's available in 6 different frame sizes to accommodate most truck models, and it's equipped with telescoping crossbars, numerous T-channels, and a versatile full and half height configuration right out of the box. This is the Ibex from Kuat. It is engineered for adventure. For more details, please visit kuat.com. Kuat, because you will absolutely love this bed rack.
So Matt, 2023 came to an end. We may have learned a couple things along the way.
It was an interesting year, right? I mean, it was kind of this first year that everything felt normal-ish.
Yeah.
Still dealing with, I think as travelers, still dealing with the consequences of the whole pandemic thing, but
sure,
it's better now.
Yeah, and even some of the countries that I was traveling through were finally not requiring
it was a
PCR tests and everything else.
It was a pain to travel when you had to do that.
It was difficult. And for me, it was always just like this fear that you were going to get stuck.
Yeah.
Where you'd be in Italy, some beautiful place, but you're actually stuck in a hotel for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Just so you can
fly home.
And
the cost of that, super unpredictable.
Yeah, it was really unpredictable. So it's nice to see a lot of that behind us.
Yeah.
But then there's new dynamics entering the world. So like even right now, me trying to get this Grenadier into Djibouti and get it shipped to Europe.
Oh yeah, because the whole Red Sea thing.
It's on the Red Sea, so
the
it's
Houthi rebels.
Yes.
Which just sounds like something from Star Wars.
It does.
Which is kind of, I don't know, not to make light of it, but I'm going to find some joy in the world right now.
Yeah, and I'm going to figure it out, but it's challenging. Like it's difficult to figure out those challenges when when the world makes such a change like that, such a big shift.
But there's a lot of good. There's a lot of good this year, I think. A lot of inspiring people getting out back to their travels, which was cool. We're going to talk about some of those people. Also, just a lot of new vehicles that either were announced this year that are quite significant, or vehicles that started being delivered this year.
Yep.
We say it all the time, but who would have thought now 2024 that we would have companies actually making vehicles for this pursuit of overlanding.
Well, and we kind of learned that from Dave when we had Dave Harriton on the podcast recently. So those who want to listen, check that out.
That was a really good one.
Yeah, it was a really good one. But it was an important kind of reminder that even if the OEMs see this big opportunity with overlanding, that it takes a while for them to be able to adjust. So to see the shift from what is the last of the GX460s to what is going to be the GX 550.
And they listened. It's a great looking car.
Oh my gosh. I mean, not only does it's finally a GX that looks great again, but it's also going to be more capable than ever before. Locking differential, like just a lot about it is going to be great.
The GX has always been one of, if not, the best platform in the US.
It was one of the best,
the right
for sure.
size. The 200, no disrespect to it, very durable, but bloated.
Yeah.
And the
you had to pay a lot for that extra durability.
Yeah, and I just the 150 Prado that's based on, it's pretty comparable for 99% of use
in its own right. Yeah, absolutely.
We have Grenadier that finally came to market, which I think is just so cool. I think just the story behind that car is great. I love the way it looks. You've obviously spent a bunch of time in it. And new Land Cruiser, like that nameplate's actually coming back to the U.S.
Yep.
Because it's interesting that, again, to go back to the 200, I think, was it 21 was the last year for the 200 in the U.S.? Yeah. We've been Land Cruiserless for the first time in a very long time.
Yeah.
And I think there's a reason for that. Like it did not sell. It did not really translate to the U.S. market. I mean, for all intents and purposes, they're about $100,000.
Yeah.
And you can get a lot more vehicle for the money. They're simple in their execution of it, of how it was made, but just behind the times. I mean, like pick an obscure Ferrari and they sold more of those than they did 200 series Land Cruisers. So clearly the consumers were speaking that, this wasn't,
Well, and in most travel in North America, you either need something more capable if you want to get really remote, or somebody wants something more luxurious for the price.
Yeah.
So it did put it in a weird spot, which is why they sold so many more Lexus variants than they did the Land Cruiser variants, because the Lexus
they were basically the same money at that point. When we were talking,
very similar.
Like maybe it was 5% difference.
Yeah, very similar. And the Lexus nameplate had the cachet, and then it had an air ride suspension system, and it had some additional luxuries that I think resonated better with the consumer. But it's really exciting to see the Land Cruiser coming back in this
it looks good too,
highly capable format.
Toyota and Lexus, they either like knock it out of the park with styling, or they do some questionable things.
And if you look at the new GX,
you
love
it or
great.
hate it.
Yeah, if you look at the new GX, it's great. If you look at the new Land Cruiser, it looks great.
I agree. I think it's cool they're doing that kind of heritage pack with the round lights.
Totally.
It's an interesting time to be into this hobby,
and the lineup just continues from there. If you look at the new stuff coming out from GM with all the AEV packages,
GM is like more so than anyone taking it really serious, and
they care. They really care about addressing the needs of overland travelers.
I've never been a GM guy ever. Like it was just a brand that never really appealed to me. I was always like Daddy was a Ford man kind of thing, and there is that tribalism with it. But if I was to go buy a new pickup truck right now, it would be the 2500 AEV Bison. I think that's what they're calling it. It's phenomenal. Drove that recently, and it's so quiet inside, and it's so comfortable. And
great motor, 10-speed automatic, rear locking differential, Multimatic.
So many miles on it. You can just go, and
still has a 2,600 pound payload. So it is kind of a sweet spot.
Which is so significant because when you look at a lot of these full-size trucks, they don't actually have that much payload.
Yeah, they really get hammered on payload.
Like, I think that my Prospector, now granted this is after bumpers, winch, and everything, and it's recertified, I think that had like 1,500 pounds, 1,600 pounds, and you can get that now in the new Tacoma is also being delivered, which we have to make sure that we mention. The Tacoma doesn't suck anymore.
Yeah. On the payload side. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, let me clarify that the Tacoma has never sucked. It's always been a very solid choice. It just wasn't as good as it could be.
Yeah.
And I think again, they recognized that. It's got a great that 2.4 turbo that they're putting in it, mild hybrid, which I think is cool, particularly because if Toyota's doing it, it's likely gonna be a proven system. Mm-hmm. It's not the newest technology. I think it's still like a nickel metal hydride battery.
They do use that in the trucks, But
It looks great, available with a manual transmission, and you had some sweet spot with it that you would choose. It was like the whatever they called it, like the not.
They have like an extra cab, which doesn't actually have any seats, so it's like a spot for a fridge, or you can put your dog back there or whatever, and then you end up with like this 1,700-pound payload,
which you can
and
comfortably
a manual transmission.
I mean, could you put one of those little scout camp? You could put one of those little scout campers
Totally,
in it
all day long.
I mean,
all day long.
You know,
Be a nice little combo.
Yeah, I mean,
and then you look at like the new Bison, ZR2 Colorado. I mean, that
crazy.
thing is insane.
Like it's
35s.
If you think
Jounces
that you want a Raptor for overlanding, which hey, I've done that. The Raptor's a great truck out of the box. This is actually like what you want. It's the appropriate size,
right?
Little larger wheel arches so that the body naturally then becomes a little bit more sucked in for the track width. Very, very cool car. Front and rear
lockers.
Four-corner
Multimatic, four-corner hydraulic jounces. Factory 35s. It's nuts.
Well, it kind of almost starts to beg this question on how necessary some of the aftermarket is, and maybe
that'll be the hard part for the aftermarket.
You end up having styling choices that people will want to modify their cars just to display their personality, and then you'll have people that won't maybe throw down for using the Colorado. They won't throw down for the Bison, but having built a lot of these trucks, particularly in the world that we live in, which is one based on monthly payment number and finance, I don't know why you wouldn't. Like it's such a pain to build trucks these days, and
a car loan rate is going to be better than a credit card rate. So and you're not going to have to spend the time. You're not going to have to go to a shop. You're not going to have to take it back when they don't do it right. It's just it's all under warranty.
Even the best shops, like I in 2023 I sold my Prospector, which I do have regrets on, though I did replace it with something that was also four-wheel drive and fun. It was just done, and I was able to enjoy it, and and I had it for a little over a year, and I was able to enjoy it for a year. Previously to that, I had the Gladiator, which I didn't buy as an AEV truck because I had one of the first ones, but all the AEV stuff got put on, and collectively of maybe, I had that car for a little bit, over 2 years.
Yeah,
that's a bit in Matt Scott world.
It is. Yeah.
Vehicle ADD. Collectively, that vehicle was in the shop for months.
Yeah.
Getting, okay, this part came out. I have to upfit this. I have to upfit this. Shops were really busy, the last couple of years. But you just get this time back, and I think that's really what I think we're starting to see in 23 were these factory overlanders. Grenadier has to be mentioned. I mean, you can get your roof rack, you can get
all of it,
snorkel, like everything,
steel
dual
wheel,
battery
steel
system.
wheels, dual battery, everything.
And the cool thing is you're not paying for this stuff twice, because if you're going to buy a vehicle and then straight off the bat you're going to put wheels and tires on it, you're buying 2 sets of wheels and tires. You're never, tires don't appreciate.
Yeah.
They depreciate quite rapidly, even.
Yeah, they do.
If they're newish, to try and resell them. So, yeah, it's been so cool, I think, putting like the automotive journalist hat on to just see where the industry is going. So, and if GM's doing it, and Jeep's starting to do it with AEV upfits, and I mean Jeep was kind of, I guess, somewhat early on with steel bumpers and that kind of stuff. But
what's really nice to see though is like the most recent versions of the Wrangler, they have full floating rear axles now, which there are Wranglers now that have a 5,000-pound towing capacity, which is the first time I've ever seen
significant.
That. And some of them have, almost 1,500 pounds of payload. So the Wrangler's getting better than everything's just getting better than it ever has been. So, it no longer is valid when you think of like the 1990s were the pinnacle of overland vehicles.
Yeah.
Like I've owned a lot of those cars.
Yeah.
Like I used to have a line of them behind you here.
Yep.
And I can tell you that most of these modern vehicles are better. They're just better.
I love that kind of 90s era. I was born in 1990, and those were the cars that I kind of grew up with, and I've been a car nut my entire life. Using like the 80 series Land Cruiser, for example, very nostalgic. Had a really rusty bad one when I was in college.
Yeah, but then you had the Disco One. You had all
I had a Disco One. I had all these things. One, the fuel costs on them, right there is, if we're thinking of it as a monthly payment or whatever, or let's think of it through the eyes of a traveler. You can get a vehicle that gets twice the fuel economy.
Oh,
now.
yeah.
And those are the expenses that really affect you while you're on the road.
The 4xe Wrangler I've been driving right now, if you look at the average miles per gallon, 28.7.
Yeah, that's insane.
It's insane.
Like
in a Wrangler.
A built 80 would struggle to get 10.
Yeah, exactly.
And
so it's almost 3 times more.
Yeah.
So that's pretty amazing.
You know, and you can get that from AEV turnkey done.
Yeah. I really like the plug-in hybrid concept. I mean, it's easy to get into this debate on EVs, which I think is somewhat foolish, because there are EVs work for some people and they don't work for others, and you just look at it as simply as that. But the plug-in hybrid is really the sweet spot, because the last couple of days I've been driving this 4xe around, and I'm using no fuel because I just plug it in at the office, and it's a 7-minute commute to my house.
Perfect. And they have what, like a 25
mile range.
Yeah.
So and even if you put big tires on it and put some stuff on it for overlanding, the vehicle would still be able to go back and forth to my house without having
the electric motors don't drop. The rolling resistance is of concern with the electric stuff.
For sure.
Like I bought a Model Y this year as my dishwasher car. It does
all the things.
It does all the things really well, and it's for how fast it is. I'm gonna say affordable. Faster than my AMG wagon that I replaced it with. In my opinion, it's faster. Maybe not top speed or whatever, but you can there's a company that actually does like a lift kit and a larger,
they look cool.
A larger tire, and it's basically, you go on the forums, it's of basically no consequence to range.
Yeah,
it's really it's interesting,
and they look cool with that little lift on there. I think if you just do it tastefully, just a little bit, it just makes it look different.
It's just higher that I have to lift my Greyhound, so I wouldn't do it. But we are seeing some cool, overlandy EVs. There's
for sure.
The Hummer truck looks hideous. The Hummer SUV doesn't look as bad.
Correct. It looks a lot more stylish and handsome.
The interior is still. It seems like it was designed for somebody who liked the H2.
Mm-hmm. Heavily inspired.
Yeah, which when you have maybe one of the coolest four-wheel drives ever made to pull inspiration from, maybe a mistake. Moving on. But the Rivian stuff is like super cool.
Very elegant.
I think. Really elegant. They are. They added. I think in 23 they added a leveling mode for their air suspension.
Yeah, so it has camp mode.
Yeah.
So it keeps the power outlets on. It levels the vehicle for the roof tent.
Cool.
So you can do a lot with software. And they also launched a dual motor variant. They launched an extended battery pack variant.
Yeah.
So they're continuing to put pressure on innovation, which I think is a really good thing. I really hope that they're successful, because Rivian, it is the Overland of EVs, because they've really made sure that it worked well off-road, and it has a reasonable range. So
yeah, and then they did start deliveries in 23 on the Cybertruck.
Yep.
I had a really, really early reservation. It actually, I think December 30th, mine came up. Hey, you can select everything, get one of the limited edition first ones. I decided not to. I think I'm just not convinced. I think it's
any of the footage that I've seen of it off road, it looks very poor in performance. It would be nice to get access to one. So anyone that's listening that has a Cybertruck, we would love it if you would reach out, because we would love to actually test the thing properly.
It's got to be a challenge, because they have to have low rolling resistance tires, and then there's so much torque that has to be appropriately modulated.
Right.
And then there's this weight. So when you have no traction and a lot of weight to try and get up a hill, I think it's a struggle. The car, in terms of ground clearance and all of those kind of metrics, is decent.
But then again, though, the Hummer EV doesn't struggle, and it doesn't struggle.
Yeah.
In the areas that I've seen,
and is that,
the Cybertrucks struggle.
Is that because of tire choice, maybe?
I think it's probably just, in my experience, what I've seen is Tesla is quite insular, which means that they develop innovations that nobody expects and look and are amazing, and they've been very successful with that. But I think it can also hurt them because it's very obvious that it wasn't designed by people who actually travel in technical terrain, so it doesn't seem to respond
the cool
properly.
Thing I've learned about Tesla, now driving one almost every day, is there's constantly these updates over the air, and they're free, and you don't have to go into the dealer.
They'll fix a lot of that stuff with an update.
And I hope, I was watching Jay Leno's Garage, and they had Franz, the designer, and the engineer, and I think that Tesla makes 5 vehicles now, and I think that all 5 of them are they occupy the top 5 of the most American-made vehicles percentage-wise.
Oh, wow.
And I think that that's really cool. I do think that the thing that Ford, Chevy, GM, Dodge, like everybody is behind the ball on the EV thing, and the common enemy is Tesla.
Yeah.
But I think it is important to realize that they're the most innovative car company in the world right now. They are American. They are American-made.
Yeah.
The best-selling crossover and SUV in Europe is an American car.
Yeah.
And that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
I think that that's cool.
I think it's important. And I hope to see, continued innovation. I think that the Cybertruck has potential, so hopefully we get to drive one at some point
Love
soon.
it or hate it, styling wise, but
yeah, I wouldn't even talk about it because to me, it doesn't look handsome. It doesn't look elegant.
Just think it would trigger people, and that's the appeal.
Yeah, but that's the problem, is buying something that is so triggering to people's responses. Like, you probably wouldn't enjoy driving it after about 3 weeks because you'd be tired of the conversations.
People do treat electric cars a little differently on the road.
They do.
Particularly living in a small town. The amount of times that I get,
rolled on you.
I want to get, exactly. Or they cut you off, or they just drive really aggressively around you.
Yeah.
And particularly it's guys in older diesel trucks. And I want to have a license plate for them. It's like, or a sticker. It's okay. My other car is a 7.3 Power Stroke.
Yeah.
Like, I'm one of you. I have a pickup truck on 41-inch military tires, dude.
That's right.
Like,
exactly. Yeah. It's pretty funny.
Interesting year for cars, definitely, and interesting to see where it will go. We've yet to really see Ford's response to the whole overlanding thing. The Tremor is really just like the new F/4 package. The Bronco Raptor.
I like it.
White sunglasses car.
The Tremor's great. Ride quality is really poor.
Yeah.
So I hope they work on that. The new Raptor Type R is really impressive.
Yeah, great.
It's an incredible piece of engineering, and it's highly effective in most terrain. It's violently fast. In fact, it encourages higher speed. Like, the thing I liked about the TRX more is that you could enjoy driving the TRX at like reasonable speeds where you don't kill old people on dirt roads. Whereas the Raptor R only got good at like the Slaughter family's speeds.
Yeah, I mean, the Raptor has always been really capable. I had this conversation with a lot of car guys on, you sit around, you have a few beers, and if you could only drive one car, and I think for a lot of people, the right answer is the Raptor, because it's like a sports car.
Oh, yeah.
But it can do anything.
Yeah.
And now it has like a 1,500-pound payload. And
yeah, the payload was up, and I took it on our most difficult four-wheel drive route where it would fit of the testing routes that we did, and it had no issues, whereas other vehicles like even the 1500 Sierra AEV was like, I had to really drive that truck to get through there, and even take some different lines because it was high centering on spots that the Raptor like did not care.
Yeah.
Because the Raptor's on 37s, whereas the 1500 is on basically a 33. So it's a huge difference in tire size. Yeah, the Raptor impressed me. Genuinely,
and I think the
impressed
Raptor
me.
R was new in 23.
It was 23.
As well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, so let's talk about some of the awards for the year. So just recently on Expedition Portal, we announced the Overlander of the Year award, which went to Malimish, which
such a sweet family.
That's a really sweet family. You and I interviewed them a couple years ago at the Overland Expo. And the reason why there are many reasons why they received this award, but one of the most important things is that we just want to continue to reinforce that overlanding is accessible to families, and this family is traveling around the world, and they have been traveling around the world for a very long time. Yeah, for a very long time. So I think it's just really important, and there are many examples of similar families that are out there doing it. So follow those kinds of accounts. If you have kids and you aspire to do overland travel, or maybe you think it's going to be a challenge or there might be some problems, I bet that those folks can really help you overcome those fears. So I would just really encourage families to continue to travel. Show your kids these places in the world. I've never had kids, so like when I get to travel with my nephews, to me it's like such a joy, and I can't wait to do more of that. So it's really neat to see families like Malimish doing that. So follow them on Instagram.
I think it's just mally.mish.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. And then there's been some other travelers that have really impressed us in the last year. You were talking about Richard and Ashley. What were some of the thoughts you had around
Desk to Glory. I mean, one, they're just, again, incredibly sweet people. But, I think that overlanders get kind of stuck on these routes. Richard and Ashley have already done Pan American Highway. But, there's the Pan American Highway, and then there's kind of like the Africa thing. And there's so many other places in the world. To me, overlanding is about culture and experiences.
Yeah.
And, camping thrown in and a little bit of off-road driving. And they've been in Europe for, have they been there for a year now? They were in UK for some time.
They were in and out. So they went down to South Africa. Like they were in South Africa when I was taking delivery of the Grenadier. So I saw them in South Africa in June.
They were down there with X Overland.
That's right. And then they also had done some traveling with X Overland in the previous series, in the Nordic series. So they had been traveling in Norway, Finland, and to Iceland. So they had done a bunch of traveling in Europe there. And then I think they took every last moment of their Schengen visa that they could.
I was
Portugal
jealous
and
of their stuff in Spain.
Yeah, so good.
The food is just like insane, and they were like getting some great camping, and some of the I don't want to say that I don't know anything about Spain, but it actually surprises me how similar Spain is in a lot of ways to Arizona.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like there's some deserty areas, there's some mountainy areas.
It's the same like Arizona. In the north is the Pyrenees.
Yeah.
So that's like our Flagstaff.
Yep.
And then in the south, it's desert.
Yeah.
And it gets even more so desert in Portugal.
And it's cool to see people camping and kind of doing that wild camping thing in Europe, because that's very uncommon.
Yeah.
You just don't really see many North American overlanders doing that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that it's okay.
Yeah.
There's museums and really good restaurants and stuff.
Yeah, great wine, like just so many things to experience and enjoy. And Richard and Ashley have done a really good job of finding a way to have a job while they're traveling full time. And when I just interviewed Ashley recently about some of her travels, she just really focused on they don't have a return date. Like they've been able to figure that out between the truck that they have and the camper that they have and the jobs that they have. Like Ashley works, almost full time with us, and she's one of the co-hosts of the podcast. So between the two of them, they've found a way to stay busy that allows them to stay on the road, which is very cool.
Yeah. And they're just good people.
Amazing people. And then I was also super impressed by two ladies that are riding a motorcycle down West Africa. They did the entire West African route, Itchy Boots, and like they got in it. I mean, their videos are raw and inspiring.
West Africa's tough.
It is tough, and just check them out. I mean, really neat stories and visuals that they've captured of their experience, a very raw, genuine travel experience that they've had. I'm just really impressed by that, and it inspires me too. So it's neat to see.
Bike down West Africa would be hard.
Yeah. I mean, it's just very cool.
I've become way too soft for that.
Yeah, but you could do it if you wanted to, and not everybody has to. But for me, it was neat to see him accomplish that, and it definitely makes me think of Motorcycle West Africa at some point.
Yeah.
While I'm still able to do that. So, and then let's talk a little bit about the 2023 four-wheel drive vehicle of the year. So when we talk about a vehicle of the year award, it is always going to go to something that was newly launched within the calendar year. Otherwise, you could end up like years past, you'd end up with the 200 series every year or something, which is kind of boring. But there's a lot of competition now, and there's no question in my mind, especially with the time that I've had with it, that the 2023 Overland Vehicle of the Year is the Grenadier. And it's available internationally. It was designed at the request of Sir Jim Radcliffe, who is an Overlander just like the rest of us.
He does it.
He does the things, rides motorcycles across Africa and everything else, and he wanted to build basically the vehicle that he felt like he lost, which was the Defender. He wanted to build something that he thought was better even than that, and in many ways it is. So the best way that I can describe the Grenadier after now 20,000 kilometers in the vehicle in Europe and in the United States and in Africa now is that if you took a G-Wagon and a Defender and a 70 series Land Cruiser and they all kind of had a love child, you'd end up with the Grenadier, because it does have all of the best of those things. And the thing that was a big unknown for us was if the vehicle was going to be reliable.
Yeah.
Because something that looks like a Defender makes you immediately recoil and think, is it going to be as reliable as a Defender?
And is English.
Yeah.
But they brought in the Germans too.
That's right. So they commissioned the Austrians to design the thing.
Oh yeah, Austrians.
In Graz. So that's the same group that designed the G-Wagon and designed the recent updates to the G-Wagon, a bunch of other vehicles, including military vehicles.
Fiat Panda 4x4.
There you go, which is well known and regarded.
Yeah.
So a highly capable engineering team, obviously designed in the UK. So it looks great, and it's got a great
yacht
interior.
Designer.
Yeah.
So not a traditional automotive designer.
And a great interior.
Little thoughtful things, like little toot horn.
Yeah. I use it all the time in Africa. Yeah. Because a lot of times you're just letting people know that you're there, or somebody's kind of wavering on the street. It's a fairly quiet car, so it's nice to kind of let people know that you're there. So I use the toot all the time. And then because it has the toot horn, the regular horn is much louder. So you kind of get the best of both. Okay. It's like, I really need you to know that I'm here, or just it's like a very respectful, gentle. Like, yeah, exactly. So for the 2023 Overland Vehicle of the Year, it goes to the Grenadier. They're delivering in the United States now. I've got a bunch of friends that have already taken delivery of them.
It was like at end of December. It was like 10 people I know got theirs, and I had a little FOMO.
Yeah, because you had one on order.
I did, but
Matt has plenty of cars, so I can see why you don't. So there really wasn't anything that was a close second, because the Grenadier is so significant. Mm-hmm. It's the only vehicle that we get in North America that was made specifically for us. Like it's not meant even for like a soccer mom, although I'm sure there are plenty of soccer moms that like the car was literally made to drive around the world.
I actually think there was a close second, the new 911 Dakar.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me about that.
Oh, I think it's based on like a GTS, but it's a lifted 911. And this whole Safari 911 thing has been, I mean, it dates back to rallying these things in the 60s,
big time.
kind of building a 1960s rally 911 as well. And this Dakar, I mean, it has like proper recovery points in the front, an all-terrain tire. And I have a bunch of friends that also bought those, and they're beating the heck out of them. And they're just having fun with them. And,
wow.
They have a roof rack with like some jerry cans on top and some recovery boards, and it's full skid plates. This is not a serious answer. I'm just...
Why not, though? Like, how cool is that?
But if there was a car right now, new, anything on the market that I could get to
drive around the world,
drive south.
Yeah.
Oh boy, it would be that one.
Well, there you go.
So...
And I would take the Grenadier, and I would just put the same few modifications that I did to the one in Africa and just start heading south, because it's just well suited for it. I've come to like the car. It surprised me. I was hoping that it would be great, and it is great. There are very few issues that I've come across with it. Even the little hump on the right-hand drives I shouldn't say a little hump. There's a big hump on the right-hand drive models, like the dead pedal, and you get used to that. Like, I don't even notice it anymore.
What's the deal with that? So, I mean, is it a big dead pedal, or is that for the transmission tunnel? Or?
Well, there's an exhaust pipe that runs through there.
So they had preference to left-hand drive.
Yeah, so if you get a left-hand drive one, the dead pedal size is much smaller.
Okay.
And it doesn't feel as intrusive. It does seem that people who are new to the vehicle notice it a lot. But again, after 20,000 kilometers, I don't notice it at all anymore.
Yeah, maybe it's because of the BMW drivetrain. That's probably just being a straight six. Exhaust manifold has to be on the right side. I think that's
exactly what it is. And already people are trimming out a lot of this plastic flooring and insulation, and it's taking a lot of the size of that thing out of there. The downside to that is then you don't have those kind of washout floors. So, the dead pedal thing is something that people are talking about. But they've had a bunch of software updates. And again, I've not had any mechanical issues. I've had no failures with the vehicle.
That's good to know, because that's kind of like...
And mine is number 372, I believe.
Yeah,
so
you're still pre-production. I mean,
yeah, they call it production, but it's like they were still hand building these things at that point.
Interesting.
But it is a fully homologated UK registerable street legal vehicle.
Yeah, I mean to be balanced on the thing, that's still my biggest concern is, I think if you live in a major city, they have a dealership network.
Yeah.
But I know that they're working on it, but here in Prescott, our closest dealer was in Southern California.
Yeah. Or in Utah or
something. Yeah. Denver, maybe. Just a considerable distance, like having owned vehicles that I can only get serviced in, Scottsdale, which is only an hour and a half away. That's
really important to note. And the only thing I can say to that is that it does appear that they're actively developing the network. So as long as they continue to actively develop the network, I think they'll have happy customers. If that slows down, I think that they'll have more challenges. So
yeah, I mean, if I'm ever in a position where I don't have to tow, I think a Grenadier would be in my future.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really worked. They call it built for Africa. I mean, that's one of their taglines, and boy, that is absolutely true. Now that I've driven it across Africa, so
super cool.
Yeah.
How's the suspension on it?
I like it because it's not. If you think about, you and I have spent a lot of time in G-Wagons, so G-Wagons have these leading and trailing arm suspension systems, and if they are kind of on the road or just on a corrugated road, they're fine. Yeah. But when you really get into more technical terrain or a lot of head toss, the advantage of this 5-link is pretty significant. So think of it like a heavy-duty Jeep Wrangler suspension underneath. Okay. So it's 5-link long travel. It has a huge sway bar up front. Somebody's going to address that. Somebody will come up with a disconnect. Yeah. And then it's really going to get a lot of flex. And the fact that the vehicle is also very wide, it's wider than a G-Wagon, like the G-Wagon that you owned, it's wider than that car. So it's actually very like low and stable. So you just don't end up.
Kind of see the Grenadier next to an older G.
They're
because
big.
Gs aren't as big as people think.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. These are much bigger cars. I would call it a midsize actually. It's along the lines of like if you've sat in a 200 series. I mean, it's a big car, which a lot of people. It's hard to see that because when you look at it, you see the form factor of an early Land Rover. Yeah. So you think it's going to be that size, but it's actually much bigger. The center console's big, and there's plenty of room to set your arm on the on the door frame and everything like that. So it's a lot more comfortable for sure. All right, so that's our 2023 vehicle of the year. So let's talk about moto of the year, and this one is interesting because the new BMW is just getting tested now, but they're not delivering the motorcycle yet.
The 1300.
The 1300, a little bit lighter, a little bit more powerful.
A lot of power. You can get a lot of power out of them.
Yeah. So that's an interest. I don't know why that's become a thing in the motorcycle space. I think it's actually a little bit foolish
numbers
to go after the power thing. I do not see that as being an advantage. Most of these adventure bikes, once you go into an enduro or enduro pro mode, they throttle the bike back to 100 horsepower. So because it's uncontrollable, it's uncontrollable at the higher horsepower numbers, which is why I really like this new segment of mid-size adventure bikes that are coming out. And for me, the one that people are buying them and they're using them and they're not having trouble with them is this new Ducati Desert X.
They look really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just a big fan of that form factor. Like I have a KTM factory Dakar bike, and it's from the KTM junior team. And I love it because it's just so like fit for purpose. And it, you have the multiple tanks, you have the saddle tanks that keeps the weight down low. You have all this suspension travel, this upright seating position. Like we were both big fans of the KTM 950.
Right.
Great bike.
Yeah, there's still one behind you right now.
They're just a little long in the tooth.
Yeah.
They get the dirty secret on those things is they get like 30 miles to the gallon, which is actually not that great for a motorcycle.
It's really bad.
And they're really, really high. I mean, they're a race bike, right?
Off-road, I was lucky to get 150 miles out of 6 gallons.
It's a challenge. But this new Ducati has all of that form factor. And where like the Dakar bike, even though that's like the sexy poster child thing, it's not great for a long term. It's a little bit too light. It's just under 300 pounds, and it just gets blown around a little bit.
Sure.
Like you want a little bit of heft. You don't want a really strung out motor. And these mid-weight bikes, you have to also consider that engines have become a lot more efficient and they've become a lot more powerful.
Yes.
For the size of displacement.
Correct.
So you can have, I believe that's a 7.
It's right at about 800 cc's.
800 cc's, yeah, and incredibly powerful.
Yep.
Probably puts out, leader bike or more performance.
And, for sure.
And less weight. And
for sure.
And they're also just not as complicated. Like a lot of these, you look at the 1300. Now you're getting into there's a lot of stuff going on with that bike, or the 1250, and I think that Ducati just like knocked it out of the park with this one.
It's also got the auxiliary tank that you can put where the rear pillion seat goes. Yeah. So you can end up with about 8 gallons of fuel on board. So, so the Desert X is 930 cc's.
Okay. So that's actually still a pretty big motor,
But again, the weight is low. I mean, it makes plenty of power. It makes 112 horsepower. Yeah. So it's plenty of power. And I really like it off road. I rode it in Colorado last year, and I was really impressed with the performance off road. And I'm about to go ride it in Morocco, so I'll be heading to Africa and using the thing there.
I mean, that's gonna be such a cool place to be on that bike because again, it's just like it looks like a rally bike.
Yeah.
And there's
it feels like a rally bike.
Yeah, and there's a reason why the rally bikes, that style and the ergonomics of that transitions so well to adventure riding. Because that's really what these guys are doing, but at a competitive level.
That's right.
And super cool.
Yeah, so Desert X gets our 2023 Adventure Motorcycle of the Year. Who knows what 2024 will hold? There's a lot of new stuff coming out that I think will be really interesting on the adventure bike space as well.
Yeah, people are really attacking KTM. Like KTM was like really on top for a while.
Yeah.
I'm going to say in the era of like the 1090, 1190.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And now you have Triumph that's come out with kind of something similar to the Desert X. You've got Ducati coming out with stuff. Like it's an interesting space. And
Triumph has got a bunch of models. They've got all these Rally Pros, and the Triumph bikes are actually really great. Like I like them better than the BMWs right now.
I also kind of think that there's less and less interest in the motorcycle space generally. Like I've kind of noticed that, at least with my group of friends, and I talk to people about it on how, bikes are just a lot more work, and cars are so good these days. Like it used to be traveling on a bike was so much cheaper, and I don't know if that's necessarily the case anymore. You're more reliant on
your friend group's just gotten a little older.
Yeah, maybe that's what's happening.
Because adventure bikes are still a growing segment within motorcycle, one of the few growing segments within motorcycle.
I never see anybody other than people my dad's age on motorcycles these days. I also live in a retirement town that may have something to do with it.
Yeah, and I think you're right overall. I think that a lot of people just aren't getting out as much as they used to, and I think it's because not to get on a soapbox, but like the social media platforms are really good at commanding people's attention. And so they've kind of lost the connection with actually doing the things. And, I was thinking about it this last year is, talking about traveling isn't traveling. Buying stuff to put on your vehicle to travel isn't traveling. Going on a forum and talking about travel or going on Instagram and following travelers isn't traveling. Like all of those things, they give us this feeling of travel and the excitement and maybe like the possibility that travel will happen and all the excitement that comes from that. But the real reward in life comes from the actual doing of the things. We have to do the things in order to learn, in order to grow, in order to actually have the experiences that result in memories. So like we're going to forget about all the things that we saw on Instagram, but when we actually get out on that motorcycle, no matter what it is, a KLR, Desert X, whatever it may be, when we get out and we actually have the experience and we're in the dust and we're picking the bike up and we're cold or we're hot or whatever, like that's the stuff you never forget.
Yeah.
So, soapbox. So let's talk about new stuff coming in 2024 that we're super excited about.
Land Cruiser.
Yeah, the new Land Cruiser, the new GX 550. Very excited about both of those.
The pricing
vehicles.
came out on the Overtrail, and it was a little more expensive than it's a Lexus.
Yeah.
And inflation and all this stuff that's going on. It's actually made me more interested in where the 250 is going to sit.
Yeah.
So I think that's indicated around like high 40s, low 50s.
Yeah.
And
it has a less expensive drivetrain, little lower content overall. What I hope happens is that, like, what are they going to do with the 4Runner? That's the big question. Like, when that Land Cruiser comes out, because it is the replacement for the 4Runner in my mind.
Yeah.
Just like the.
it's in theory, it's the same chassis, right? It's
That's right.
The 4Runner was on a Prado 150.
That's right.
This is a Prado 250 that does not have Prado badging in the U.S.
Exactly.
So
that'll be really interesting to see what happens there. It kind of makes me remember the launch of the Defender. Like the new Defender is the best discovery that Land Rover has ever made.
Yeah.
We didn't actually get a Defender. We got a great version of a Discovery, and people make the mistake of expecting it to be a classic Defender, and it's not.
Yeah.
So I think it's the same thing with the 4Runner. My fear is just like, are they going to make it some mild hybrid, like crossover? I just don't like let it go. Like let it go. Don't
it's an interesting
Pathfinder the thing, please.
It's an interesting conversation because they could take it the removable hardtop runner Jeep kind of competitor.
Could you imagine?
That would be super cool. They could also, they could and this would be the bad thing, is they could look at who actually buys Forerunners. They sell a lot of them, right? And I think that
250,000 Forerunners.
Yeah, they're. I think if I'm going to stereotype, there's somebody that wants a little bit more than a crossover these days.
Right.
They want something that's a little trucky feeling.
Right.
They want something that's durable and reliable. And unfortunately, like a lot of that kind of overlaps with crossover these days. Does the person who's actually, the bulk of the people who are actually buying a Forerunner, do they benefit from a Land Cruiser body on frame chassis? Probably not.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, a lot of the people that I know that own Forerunners, they appreciate the authentic nature of the car.
Yeah.
They're smart people that aren't going to be swayed by some marketing gimmick. You know, putting a TRD Pro badge on a Highlander doesn't make it an Overland vehicle.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's interesting because there's just like Forerunner people out there.
Oh yeah.
You know, they're kind of
they tend to be really good folks. Like overall, there's like not the douchey category of Forerunner owner.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. You know,
and it's a super popular vehicle in our space.
Yeah.
I mean, we just gave it the #1 on our top 10 list. So
it's still a great choice. I mean, it is so outdated. Like,
yeah, 5-speed automatic still. Yeah.
I mean, like I remember when 5-speed was like, whoa, it's got a 5-speed. But you know, now it's just like.
It's because they could.
Yeah.
It's because they continued to sell them in like massive numbers.
Yeah.
And I think it's because it's a good car for a lot of people. I really do. So, all right.
Quartermaster is coming out.
Yes, that's right.
And that's kind of cool. So if you don't know what the Quartermaster is, it's from Ineos. It's going to be the Grenadier Quartermaster, I believe. And it's kind of a similar ilk to like a Gladiator.
Yeah.
Like what the Gladiators to Wrangler, the Quartermaster will be to the Gladiator. On paper, it looks really good.
Yeah, payload numbers look good. Could be pushing up close to 2,000 pounds of payload.
Yeah, very much that kind of Defender 130 vibe, like down to the fact that my biggest gripe with the 130 was that it didn't have a spare tire, like either mounted underneath or on the back or something, and it just takes up. You want to put a camper in it?
Sure.
Where's your tire go?
Yeah.
You want to put a bunch of stuff in the bed? Where does the tire go?
Sure.
That's my only gripe with the Quartermaster so far, but it looks really cool.
It does. I think it's got a lot of potential. It's probably one of the vehicles that I'm most interested in because I still haven't decided what I want my next project to be because I'm still spending a lot of time in Africa. So I don't really need a project car yet, but like I want to have a project car for 2024. So it's definitely, I'm thinking, Quartermaster, Gladiator. I just don't know.
Talk about the Gladiator a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, the
There's a lot.
Quartermaster is more you, for sure.
I agree. There's something about a Gladiator with a normally aspirated V6 and a 6-speed manual transmission
that is cool.
That has a lot of appeal to me. It would probably be the last manual transmission car I'll ever be able to buy. So there's something about me that really likes the idea of, and if you spec it out, like you can get a Gladiator with a V6 and a manual transmission and a hardtop. Still has a Dana 44 axle in the rear, a lighter duty Dana 44 in the front compared to a Rubicon, but 1,700 pounds of payload, and they're like 42, 43 grand. Like
and they're discounting the heck out of them right now.
It's crazy numbers. It's like really interesting solution, I think.
It's one of the cars I've kept the longest was the Gladiator. They're phenomenal off-road.
That's my thought.
You put a 37-inch tire on that.
It's going to meet my expectations off-road.
And there are so many widgets and parts available for them. Yep. So anything you want to do, you can do to it.
Yep.
My problem with the Gladiator is, I want to be, a little unique snowflake, and there's just so many of them.
There are, especially in Prescott. They're like on every
so
corner
many. It's
for
like,
sure.
It's like sell your house in Southern California,
Yeah, pay cash for something in Prescott and buy a Gladiator,
and then trade your Mercedes into the Jeep dealer.
So true.
Or they get long bed dualies and they try and park on the square.
Yeah,
that's annoying.
Yeah, it is. That's why they give a lot of tickets out on the square. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about what we kind of see as being the 2023 Overland product of the year. It's really easy to kind of want to give it to something like, for example, like the Dometic water system is really impressive. It's one of the best new product releases that I've seen in a long time. But the game changer for overlanding in 2023 was Starlink going mobile.
Yeah,
they have mobile units. They have low profile units now. Matt's been using a high performance mobile unit on his Earth Roamer with great success.
Good.
So
I get faster internet when I travel than I do at home.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to say 100 megabytes a second going down the road.
Yeah.
You know, at 68 mile an hour, because that's as fast as the tires are rated for. And it just works so good. And I've really noticed from the start of the year to the end of the year, more satellites are going up.
Yep.
And I mean, even using it in like trees and like kind of wooded areas, like you can point it through a forest, and it's not going to be 100% connected, but it's enough.
It gets better and better. And then, so there's a domestic mobile plan, which is at about $80 a month or something. No, I'm sorry, $120 a month. Excuse me. And then there is a global mobile plan, which means it works everywhere that Starlink has a signal, and which doesn't mean that you can legally use it in those countries. It's really important to know the difference.
Yeah.
So, and that is $150 a month, and that's what I've been using in Africa. And Starlink is now sold in Mozambique. It's sold in Eswatini. It's sold in Tanzania. It's sold in Kenya. It's available. It's a big
deal.
It's sold in Zambia. Like, you can get Starlink now in Africa, and it's legal to use it. So there's obviously some concerns that have been voiced around, like, how do you take it over the borders? It's legal to use it. Like, they're sold in the country. They're not a controlled item. Now, when I can't take it into Ethiopia, so I brought it back with me. So, like, there are countries where you can't take it in legally, and I didn't want to risk it. So I'm not going to have it for this next leg. But most of Africa, you can't buy it in South Africa, but it's not a controlled item in South Africa, so you can use it in South Africa too with great success. So Namibia, Botswana,
it just works. Like I keep having like internet outages at my house, and I just want to like cut the cord.
Yeah,
and
go full Starlink. That's what my dad has on the ranch out there.
Really?
Yeah, he runs Starlink 24/7, and just it has never not worked.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's so easy. So
yeah, we were talking about this earlier. There are some downsides to Starlink.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily related to performance because I don't even think the cost is that much. Honestly, I had like a crazy 5G cradle point thing in the Earth Roamer before the Starlink, and the data plan that you need for that was the same price.
Yeah, it's expensive.
It barely worked. You have to be judicious with your use, because you have to remember that we do this to a degree to get away, and we do it to experience places.
The always on thing is tough.
Yeah, I hardwired mine, and I did hardwire it with a switch, and it's very easy for me to press that switch. And as I switched to lithium batteries and energy is just no longer a concern, it's been left on more and more and more. And I find myself in these beautiful places. Like a month or so ago, we were at Muley Point in Utah. It's a beautiful, one of the most spectacular places on the planet that you can camp.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there on my phone, and my wife Laura is sitting there on her phone, and we're not talking. you know, we're just absorbed in our phones because, you know, when you're just in normal day-to-day life, like, I think everybody's pretty good. I mean, you're pretty good. I'm not the worst, but people are just absorbed on their phones.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, your brain doesn't stand a chance against like trillion-dollar company psychologists.
That's right.
Trying to get your attention.
Right.
And you have to just turn it off. You know, there's times previously when I just had the regular Starlink and I'd have to put it out and set it up, and I didn't have lithium batteries, so like I had to turn it off at night, and I actually then disconnected.
And you got better sleep and everything else. Yeah.
Where I'm finding now, like, no matter where I'm at, it just works, and I'm always connected.
Yep.
You can't just like disappear into the woods, so to speak, and shut off. You now have to have the control of and the cognizance to turn the dang thing off.
Yeah, like if you work remotely, have office hours.
Yeah.
You know, you fire
because your phone's going to ring. That's the thing. Is like all these days, everything's voice over IP or whatever, right? So you're in the middle of nowhere, your phone rings, your text messages come in. I mean, it is seamless to being in the real world.
And it was even the same in Africa. Now it was capped at 10 megabits a second, but still like 10 megabits going down the road in the middle of Africa, dodging potholes with like perfect broadband internet.
Yeah.
You know, so it was really important for me to shut it off. And I think it was one of the things that I did in 2023 that I learned the most from was I spent about 8 weeks without a smartphone. I used what was called a light phone. And the light phone, it had a lot of challenges, like particularly around travel. It just doesn't work. You can't hail an Uber, and it doesn't work internationally. So, but what I did do is I took all of the social media apps off of my phone.
Yeah,
so
I did that for a while. That's the first thing.
I'm really grateful that I did that. I still am on social media, but I go on to an iPad mini. Actually, I happen to have it right here.
Yeah.
And that's where I have Instagram and everything else, but I only go on it at certain times in the day.
It is so easy, remember, to delete these apps.
Yeah.
They don't want you to delete them, but they really want you to bring them back on your phone.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like when I get stressed with business or life or whatever, first thing I do is I delete the Instagram app because it immediately gives me back a bunch of time. A day. And that's a lot of time.
Well, and I mean, they say that the average American's on their phone for 5.5 hours a day.
Yeah.
Like, think about that.
People don't know how to
That's
be
a whole lot of life.
Anymore.
That's a whole lot of life that's gone.
I don't know how to be.
Yeah. A couple soapboxes today. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. So,
what's a year in review?
Yeah, exactly. So then what were some of your favorite products from the year?
I bought a really cool watch that I like, and it's maybe a little bit obscure. It's not. I'm not saying I'm tired of like the. You know, like there's these kind of grail watches, like the the Rolexes and the Omegas and that kind of stuff. Like everybody, I'm not saying everybody has them. You know, it's a place of privilege to have one of these things, but I wouldn't say that they're unique. When you find out that they make tens of millions of Rolexes a year, like I said, I like to be a little snowflake. So I've gotten really into classic and kind of what maybe they call them vintage modern Porsche design watches, because I'm a Porsche geek. Anybody that listens to this knows that I am. But there's this watch called the Compass Uhr, and it's basically a watch that Porsche Design developed shortly after kind of Porsche and Porsche Design went their own ways, and the Porsche family wasn't working for the company anymore. It was designed for hunters, and it has an actual compass in the bottom, and it has a signaling mirror, and it actually folds up. And it's really, really cool. I have an original one, and I have a reissue. I wear the reissue because it's all titanium. The original ones are made of like Delrin, and they're pretty fragile. But you can take the compass out, you can put it on a map, and when you're just kind of like, to me, it's like this analog Garmin watch. You know, you really like your Garmin watch.
I do,
I mean, I think they're great watches too. I have one. But it's just like me and a watch. You know, I like sports cars, and I like exploring, and it's got the watch and the little signaling mirror. I mean, even though I just like usually use the mirror to make sure I don't have like chocolate on my face, but it's actually incredibly useful. So that was my favorite kind of like.
I do think there's a lot of advantage to an analog watch.
Yeah.
It's another way of disconnecting. It's the reason why I like the Garmin over an Apple Watch, is that the only notification that I get on the Garmin is if a phone call is coming through, which I find useful because I don't always have my phone on me.
Yeah.
So, but there's a lot to be said for an analog watch. I mean, it's the one like piece of jewelry that a guy will typically wear is a watch. So for it to connect in with a brand that you love, being Porsche, and this one's got a compass, which is along travel lines. I mean, I get it. Like, I think that analog watch, there's a lot of advantages to analog watches, I think, in my mind. All right, what else do you got on your list?
I bought the new Leica M11.
Yeah?
I've been shooting rangefinders now for 12 years. And here's the interesting thing about these cameras is they are ridiculously expensive. But they don't depreciate in the same way that, let's say a Canon DSLR will.
Sure.
As soon as a Canon DSLR, like I bought the last DSLR or Canon camera I bought was like a 5D Mark IV. I mean, it's a doorstop now. I still paid $3,500 for it. I don't know how old those things are. What they're
old.
They're old.
Yeah, 5-6 years old now.
But it's worthless. Like I have a 5 or 6 year old M10 rangefinder that I paid. I always buy them used, right? So I paid probably $4,500 for, and I could probably get $4,000 for it today. So when you've been in this hobby for a long time of these Leica cameras and rangefinders, and particularly the lenses, because any photographer will tell you the body is kind of disposable. It's the lenses that you really want to invest in.
Yeah.
So I have lenses, like one of my favorite lenses is a 40 millimeter Summicron. It's actually not technically for an M, but it's interchangeable. I paid like $400 for that lens. At the time, it was like the cheapest that you could get. Well, now they're like $1,500 to $2,000 in good condition because Leica continually raises their prices.
Right.
And everything from like the 50s to present is interchangeable. They don't every couple of years build in obsolescence to it.
Yeah, they've got some class as a
this
company.
This new M11, I think it's actually like a Sony A7.
Yeah, same sensor as it's in my camera.
It's 60 megapixels, backside illuminated. It has phenomenal, dynamic range. It is rated as the best sensor that you can get in a 35 millimeter camera. It is up there and competing with medium format cameras. And Leicas have always been like so behind on this stuff, like great lenses, interesting shooting experience. Like the sensors were always, if we're being honest, like
they were okay.
They were okay.
Yeah.
They were overpriced. This is the first camera from them that, like, from the first time I used it, I'm like, wow, they've really got this figured out.
Yeah.
They've integrated the live view shooting very nicely. There's a button that allows you just instantly magnifies, and you can touch on the screen and it'll magnify to there, which is really handy with the rangefinder because you can only focus in the center. If you don't know what a rangefinder is, you're basically aligning lines. You're literally taking two images through mirrors and you're overlapping them until they match. You have a monochrome, you get it. This thing is actually phenomenal.
And it's a great way to shoot. And I think the reason why rangefinders have always resulted in such exceptional photographs is that the photographer has to be very engaged in the process.
Yeah. You have to be present. And I enjoy the act of taking images with it because the reality these days is that your phone is the most accessible, best camera that you can have on you.
Most of the time.
Yeah. Like it's just always there. So that's what you always use.
And as a result, a lot of the photographs end up looking the exact same.
Yeah. So if you're trying to be a little more creative, this thing is
yeah,
wonderful.
they're cool. Yeah, they're really cool.
And always buy them used is my advice. I bought this one. It was unused, honestly. Like there's people that will just buy these things, like just rich idiots that just collect these things and never use them. And then the next one They'll always do like a P version,
Sure.
which has like a sapphire screen, but it'll be the same. And then everybody sells their other ones. So I always buy it like 18 months in.
Sure.
And you can get, like several $1,000s off.
It's a lot of money.
And, but then you keep it and you keep it in decent condition. I mean, mine will have some brassine or whatever on it because actually there's parts of it that are literally brass. This one's aluminum, but they kind of just keep going up and, they keep raising the price. So then in a couple of years, when you go to get the next one, you don't
have a doorstop.
You don't have a doorstop.
Yeah.
So I think that's maybe the hard thing for people that they're like, wow, that's really, really expensive because they are like $8,000 or $9,000.
Well, it's expensive the first time you buy it.
Yeah.
And then if you continue to upgrade and use it throughout a lifetime, then it's probably not that expensive.
It costs you, in my experience, because this is my fifth, I've had an M8, M9, M240, M10, fifth rangefinder, maybe $1,000 every 3-4 years.
Yeah.
And I don't think that I genuinely do not think that you could shoot a Canon DSLR or mirrorless or whatever for that amount of money.
Yeah, because they go from being expensive to doorstops.
$3,000 or $4,000 now to nothing.
For sure. Yeah, exactly.
And a special thanks to O3 Outdoors for their support of this week's podcast. The world is messy. That's the price every outdoorsman pays for adventure. So when we need to keep things fresh, well, we at O3 Outdoors don't just do things halfway. We turn to the same technology NASA uses to clean the space station, and we bring it down to our own frontier. You know the smells, the sweat, smoke, and fuel, the smells of a proper adventure, the stuff of a true outdoorsman knows firsthand. Our technology here at O3 Outdoors eliminates bacteria and odors on gear or in your homes and on your vehicles. Our Trekker bags allow you to pack, store, and carry your gear, cleaning it the entire time. Our portable Overlander units fit in any vehicle, home, or RV. It's the highest tech, brought to you to the outdoor experience, keeping your gear fresh from one frontier to another. For more information, visit o-3outdoors.com. O3 Outdoors, go explore.
So I've rambled on my pretentious, snobby gear tastes. Do you want?
Yeah, but I love your gear taste.
Do you want to ramble about?
That's why we're buddies. That's why we're
snobby gear tastes.
That's why we're buddies. And it's funny because mine somehow didn't end up pretentious. So as mine normally does, and I think a lot of it's because I've just been very much in a travel mode this year. And so I've really liked the Garmin watch. I've had the Apple Watch, and I do have quite a few analog watches. Like I have my dad's vintage Seiko Pogue that I really love, but I've been wearing the Garmin a lot because I do use it for tracking fitness, and I like it for travel because it does have a GPS built into it.
Backup.
Which is some redundancy that I like. So I've got the Phoenix Sapphire, and it's a little bit understated.
You've got the big one.
I do. It's pretty good size, which is fine. I'm a bigger guy, so it kind of swallows it a little bit. But I put kind of like a fun NATO style band on it, so it doesn't look quite as techy because I don't really like the techy version.
The problem
of modern.
with the regular one is it almost stretches.
It's
on
weird.
You
Yeah, it's weird.
Gets sweaty.
Yeah, and actually, like gets sweaty and scratchy and itchy and But I do like this NATO band.
And that has a light built into it, right?
It does. And actually, so when I first got it, I think I posted something on it, and Gianni, a mutual friend of ours, he's like, "Dude, you're gonna love the light." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "I'm telling you, you're gonna love the light." And sure enough, like I use the light all the time on the watch.
It's kind of like your flashlight on your phone.
Yeah, except the cool thing is that it's on your wrist, so you actually have your hands free.
Oh,
so, even though it's not maybe flashing directly onto the object, there's enough ambient light that's created from it where you're able to use both hands.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, so it's super cool. I do like I forgot about the light. You're right, that the light's really useful. I've also really liked the new Dometic water system. We talked about that earlier, but I think they just nailed it with that. It's 3.5 gallons for the jugs. So the jugs are lighter, easier to handle. They're also perfectly square, and they tend to store really well, easily. I like the USB charged faucet. So I think it's a really clever system, and I've used it a lot personally. So I do like that. I also have really enjoyed. Red Arc makes a comprehensive solar blanket package that includes the solar charge controller and alligator clips, and I use that.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
I use that with the Grenadier in Africa, and it's just the right size for the windscreen, so it goes across the windscreen, and it keeps my fridge running. It keeps the Starlink running if I've got that going. It also gave me a little bit more confidence, just in case I accidentally left accessories on or drain the battery.
Yeah, you just hang out for a little bit and it'll start.
That's right. So, which I'm traveling as a solo vehicle. So for me, it was kind of an important redundancy to have that.
Yeah, the Red Arc stuff's really nice.
Yeah, I think they do a nice job with it. And I just brought it over in my check bag. It was just super easy. And then I have really liked this Explorer trailer X145. It's the best trailer. I'm not a huge fan of trailers, but it's the best trailer that I've ever used, and it has kind of become my earth roamer.
Yeah.
So I've spent probably
and you kind of
80,
sometimes you live in it when you come back from Africa.
I do. I've probably got 100 nights in that thing, and it's got a dry bath, like a big shower. It's got the toilet system I'm not a huge fan of. It's like one of those
dry bath or wet bath.
No, it's dry. So the shower's totally separate from the toilet. Big bathroom in the very back of it. Double bed. Has 1,080 amp hours of lithium,
which is crazy because it's not.
Which means you can run the air conditioner all the time.
Yeah.
So
it has 1,000 watts of solar.
1,000 watts of solar. So you can run the Dometic air conditioner nonstop.
And is it the 12 volt?
Yeah, that's right.
See, that's interesting because those only pull I think it's between 30 and 50 amps DC.
That's right.
And 1,000 watts of solar will sustain that.
That's right.
So your glide ratio, so to speak, is tremendous.
Which means you can run it through the night.
Yeah.
When it's hot, and it's also only a 15-foot box, so it's not a lot of space. And this Explorer trailer company, they're not an advertiser. It's just I just happen to really like the product. The Explorer company, trailer company, Imperial Outdoors, they make ice fishing trailers. So that's where they cut their teeth.
Yeah, because it's 4-season.
It's a
well
true
insulated.
4-season.
It's quiet inside.
It's a true 4-season trailer. It also has heating blankets on the gray water and the main water tanks that run off the lithiums and keeps the system from freezing.
That's nice.
So it's super, and it's got a proper Australian style suspension system on it, airbag suspension system on it. So it actually does pretty well off road, and it's not that heavy, 5,000 pounds, so it'll tow behind most.
You could
vehicles.
do it behind a Wrangler.
That's right, exactly. So there's a lot that I like about that trailer. I'm kind of become a fan.
Yeah,
become a fan of that one. All right, man. Well, we're kind of coming to the end here, but I think what are you excited about for 2024? What kind of trip are you excited to do in 2024?
I haven't actually figured out what I'm going to do as far as a trip. I'm interested in the Canadian Rockies.
Yeah.
That's not something I want to do in the summer. That's probably more of a end of fall trip when there's less people there.
Sure. See the aurora.
Yeah, Pacific Northwest is on my
Nice.
radar. I've always kind of driven through that area, and I haven't spent any significant time there.
Nice.
It's so gorgeous up there, and it's so different from Arizona.
I like it up there. Yeah. I really liked Oregon.
I really like that. Our next stuff that we're going to be doing, honestly, is ski camping. The Roamer, same thing, all the heated tanks, and it's so comfortable and so well insulated.
Yeah.
And hotels have just gone insanely expensive that, a lot of the resorts in New Mexico, some of them in Utah and Wyoming and Montana, they allow you to camp in the parking lot.
Oh, that's amazing.
So, it can be a semi-affordable way to,
go to some really nice spots.
Well, yeah, because the challenge for the winter is that we live in the place where everybody travels in the winter. Like Arizona, the Southwest, the low desert. It's obviously been a warm and dry winter, but for so many years we've gone down to the Sonoran Desert, or we've gone to Baja, or Southern California, that kind of stuff. I'm just kind of trying something different now that we have the ability to.
I love it.
Keep us and the Greyhound warm.
I love it. Yeah, winter camping is pretty fun. For me, I'm just really excited.
Well, you're in the middle of an Africa trip. Duh.
Yeah, I'm just really excited to finish up this trip. I've got Ethiopia next, and that's become, it's a real logistical challenge to get the vehicle in there, but I think I've got it solved. And then into Djibouti to ship the vehicle, but that's a real challenge because of the conflict right now in the Red Sea and that region of the world. So who knows? Like, it could be a lot more of a challenge when I finally get there in a couple weeks. So we'll see. But I'm about ready to go to Morocco and ride the new Ducati, so I'm excited about that too. So
motorcycle press launches are usually no joke.
Yeah,
there'll be people like us that can kind of ride a bike, and then there's like some like test rider that at age 3 was doing backflips.
Yeah, and I'm glad that those folks exist, because every once in a while you do get someone on a press launch that didn't answer the questions honestly. And there's usually someone that's going to the hospital every press launch. So yeah, you can't fake it. Like, 4-wheel drive journalists fake it a lot. They don't actually know how to drive off road, but the cars are so good that they somehow survive.
And they have like the best trainers in the world. Like, telling them by millimeter where to go.
Whereas on a motorcycle, you can't fake it. You got to either ride it or you go to the hospital.
Heavy bike and sand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we have reached out a couple times on the podcast to small businesses to please always reach out to Matt and I. We want to support small businesses in the industry.
Really
it's really important. We love seeing people come up with new ideas. So this one's actually kind of fun. It's called Radio Chatter, and it is for when you're going overlanding and you want to strike up a conversation over the radio, maybe with people that you don't know that well. And it's kind of like, the dating cards or whatever, the ones but it's all these different questions. So I'm going to ask Matt a couple questions here.
Okay.
So,
I didn't know about this.
Okay. So this is, what other hobbies or activities have you incorporated into your travels?
Bird watching.
Nice. That's right. Ornithology. I like that. Seems like eating became a good hobby.
Eating. I don't do the cooking. Laura's very talented. So eating. Geez. Photography. Always photography. But bird watching is the maybe the unexpected one.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
And it seems to be a thing with Overlanders, a little bit of ornithology.
Hit me with another one.
All right, here's another one. What piece of gear has been the biggest disappointment for you?
Ooh, should I answer that one honestly?
Yes.
The Red Arc Red Vision system, just constantly, like, something would rattle loose, or like little screws that held in the clips something would go, or if it was just too complicated for the application.
Yeah. So good for a trailer, but maybe not
instantly. Yeah. They make good stuff, and now they have like a smaller version.
Yeah.
But there was a period where like every like Instagram influencer was putting this like system meant for a trailer in the back of their 4Runner, and then you think it's a good idea, and it was a terrible one. Unequivocally that.
Good.
Yeah.
So these are pretty cool.
Red Arc.
Well, it's super important that we're always honest about the products that we use.
Yeah.
And some companies make great solutions, and sometimes the solution doesn't work out. But this is really clever. So
I want to pick one for you.
Okay. Do it.
What hair care products do you use when you overland? No, the actual one is, what is your go-to camping area?
Oh, my go-to camping area. In North America, I would say it's Southern Utah. I really like.
so good.
I really do.
Oh, it's terrible. Actually, don't go there.
And it's really easy to get there from here.
That's cool. That's a really cool.
Yeah,
thing.
isn't that a neat thing? So
support that.
Yeah, check out Radio Chatter. They're on Instagram and all of the things. And then Brian Wilmert, who I've worked with on some projects with GM, he's started another little business making spices. So it's Detroit barbecue, Willie B's.
Okay.
Detroit barbecue, and it's this is an unboxing at the same time, but it's got a cool little very overlandy looking bag.
Yeah, that's nice.
And then you open it up here, and it's got a whole bunch of spices. So it's got Bayou Problems, it's got smoky meat, and Kiss and Slap. There's a whole
I like
there's a whole bunch of different barbecue seasonings in a nice little.
Yeah, a lot of uses for that too, because generally people just don't bring seasonings or anything with them.
And it's in a cool little bag, and it's designed and made by an Overlander that's really passionate about our industry. So nice job on this, Brian. So check this out, Willie B's barbecue, seasoning kit, which is kind of cool. And then last couple things here, we actually had some comments on Instagram, and one of them that I really wanted to talk about here, and I'm not going to mention his name, but it's important. He says, "Hey man, I've been debating on sending you this for a while, and I'm not even sure you'll see it, but which we do try to read every comment that we get on Instagram as a DM. But I wanted to thank you for what you do, from your podcast to the Overland Journal. This has helped me immensely for a bit. I was in a pretty dark spot, but I would always try to come back to at least your podcast, and it's helped me continue to push on because of my want to see the world like you have. So once again, thank you for the work and for giving me a goal that I truly want to reach." So first of all, thank you for reaching out, and I've been able to communicate with him since then. But for those of you that are struggling, if there is anything that Matt and I can do to support you, life can get dark for folks.
Yeah.
And there is help. There's people that love you. So please reach out if there is something that we can do to support you. Stay in contact with people in your life. But life can get challenging.
Yeah, and I think also just always remember that the world that you see people live on the internet is generally not their world.
Right.
It's a curated view of it.
You get the highlight reel,
and it's okay to say that you're down or you're having some problems. I've gone through that.
Yeah.
And talking to people and just being open about it helps so much.
Yeah, we really need to have those people that we trust close to us, that we can do that. So, and here's another question from Ryan. He says, I love his question. "I wanted to get some advice from someone with actual experience, if you don't mind," which I do have some actual experience around this topic that he's asking about, but it says, "I plan to take my first longest overland trip to Baja from Kentucky in my Tundra. I hear nothing but amazing things about Baja, and I am super excited to see it for myself. Though my close family and friends," who he puts in parentheses, "have never been there, think we'll be kidnapped and skinned alive. It will be just my wife, a dog, and myself. Should I be concerned about traveling to Baja alone?" So Matt and I can share our personal experiences. I have never had even the smallest issue of any kind in any part of Mexico, including all of mainland, all the way down through the Yucatan and Mexico City and everything else. I've had to pay some questionable traffic tickets, and I did get extorted a little bit by the police in Mexico City, but I never feared for my life. I never felt like that I was unsafe, but there are some basic principles that you want to employ. It is fine to travel alone. I've done a bunch of solo trips in Baja, but if you're traveling solo, like just you and your family in a vehicle, stick to more traveled routes where you'll come across other travelers if you have a problem.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in Baja these days.
Right.
There's a lot of vehicle-based travelers down there.
Bring along something like a spot device or a Garmin InReach so that you can communicate if you have an issue, if you have a mechanical problem. Obviously, he's driving a Tundra, so he's probably not gonna have any issues at all. And then really avoid driving at night.
Just don't do it.
Just don't do it. And it's not because it's like the banditos come out at night, which is maybe true, but it's more like donkeys in the road, drunks in the road, drunks driving on the highway, cows, and the roads have basically no shoulder. So there's a high degree of risk driving at night. Keep the vehicle speed low, drive during the day, don't drive fatigued, and then just have a great time, because Baja's wonderful. The food's amazing. The people are amazing.
Yeah. I mean, the only time that I've had an issue was when I broke my rule and I drove at night, and I don't even know if it was an issue. I'm not even.
It felt like an issue, though.
It felt like an issue.
Yeah.
And that was really easily avoidable. I was trying to drive from south of Loretto to north of San Felipe in one day, and gas station wasn't open, you know?
Yep.
So you have to wait for the gas station to be open. It's fine. Like like, I think that you have to be diligent, you know, like maybe where I do differ on the Mexico thing is, you know, statistically Mexico has some issues, right? You're going to be in an unfamiliar place, and you don't need to be paranoid, but I do think that it is wise to not place yourself in situations that would make you uncomfortable, because you may just get jumpy and then provoke something into happening. So if you're uncomfortable with the situation, remove yourself from the situation.
Yeah.
You know?
And then there's routes that are a little bit better. So, for example, if you were to stay on the Cia Cortez side, there's a lot more tourist traffic there. There's a lot more tourism infrastructure. Yeah. It's just kind of a quieter route, especially down through Gonzaga Bay and all that.
And that's all paved now. I mean, you could take a Ferrari through that at 150 mile an hour. It's a good road. You know, Tijuana can have some issues.
Yep.
You know, like would I leave my earth roamer parked overnight in Tijuana? No.
Yeah, and there's so many U.S. cities that, like, you wouldn't do that in a bunch of areas in Phoenix.
I'm from Chicago. Like, I wouldn't. There's a lot of places there. You know, you're from the East Coast. Like, there's dangerous places on the East Coast.
Yep.
Dangerous place on the West Coast too. But anyway.
Yeah. So drive during the day. Stick to the more traveled routes and have a bunch of tacos. Have a great time, and then reach back out when you do your trip. We'd love to see some photos and share some of your experiences from the adventures. I did get some other questions, but we're going to run out of time today. Please make sure that you reach out to Matt and I if you've got questions or you want to follow up with anything, or you have suggestions. Like, we know that we have a lot to learn still, even though we're at like 180 episodes now. We have a lot to learn, and we want to get better. We want the podcast to get better.
Yeah.
I've not always nailed the audio, and I apologize for that. That's not Paula's fault. It's usually me trying to record it someplace in the field, and I've not done a great job of that. So we're continuing to try to improve our audio and other.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to get overland travelers into a studio.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult. So Matt, how do they reach you?
I'm sporadically on Instagram at Matt Explore.
Yep.
And you're Scott.A.Brady.
That's me. So if you guys want to reach out with any questions or comments, and again, small businesses, please reach out. We'd love to work with you. Yeah. It's really fun for us to see you guys be successful and come up with cool ideas like Radio Chatter. So
cool.
Well, thanks, Matt. Appreciate your time. Awesome year. So now we got 2024 ahead of us. I'm excited.
It'll be a good one.
Yeah. And we thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.